Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was looking good for the Jets for a while. Now, should we be asking some questions about Zach Wilson? And I'd be remiss if we didn't get into what was definitely the most active NFL trade deadline day in history. And of course, I never do this alone because I'm not good enough. I got to bring in the big guns. And that's my man, Mr. Trey Wingo. Trey, did you miss me last week?
I did. In fact, we talked about it a lot, how you sort of quit during the season and took time off. So, we missed you, and we made note of your absence in many ways. So, you were missed.
Okay. Yeah. I'm awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, let's get right into it. Our first segment, actually, before I do that, I want to let everybody know that Pro Football Network, we have worked hours and tirelessly on a full feature-length documentary. It's our first one ever, Trey. It's our inaugural full feature-length documentary. It is entitled Hopeful, and it is a documentary that is all about NFL fans. Every year we hope to do one of these highlighting a fan base, and it just so happens this year we highlighted the Cleveland Browns. And Trey, this is the graphic we're showing to the nation. We got a special one for Browns fans. Brian, can you pull that one up? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that was pretty much the message we got from the Browns fans we spoke to. A lot of documentaries out there, Trey, talk a lot about players, the game, the history, so on and so forth. Not a lot focused on the fans themselves. And that's what we aim to do here with Hopeful, the psychology of being a Browns fan. And my Lord, Trey, we've talked about enough of the reasons that keep these guys up at night, huh?
Yeah, we have. And they turned it around on Monday night. The Browns won their fifth straight game over the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow has won exactly 0 games as a starting quarterback against the Cleveland Browns. And the Bengals still haven't won a road Monday night playoff game or one Monday night primetime game or Monday night game on the road since 1990 when Boomer Esiason was their starting quarterback. 9 straight road Monday night losses.
Yeah, it's a while back. Well, look, guys, the documentary is free for everybody. And to get to it is real simple. ProFootballNetwork.com/hopeful. That's it. ProFootballNetwork.com/hopeful. Go check it out now. A lot of work went into it, and I think it came out amazing. It gives me a lot of hope for what we can do some more of these things in the future. Let's get to our first segment. Trey, it's time to learn, man. It's time to learn. And after every week, there's so much for us to learn. And the first thing I want to ask you here is
wait, before we go any further, I just learned looking at the shot that my sign is not correct. So let me fix that real quick. Oh, yeah, that's better. I learned something there. So that was what I learned.
And what the audience learned is the devil's in the details, and Trey doesn't miss those. All right, so
correct.
Catch that. So, listen, we've all wondered, is Zach Wilson ready to take the next step? Is he ready to be the guy? And if he's not, should we be seeing Joe Flacco here? And this week, Trey, they moved Joe Flacco down to number 3 and Michael White up to number 2, kind of cementing Zach Wilson's place there. So true or false, Joe Flacco should be the starter for the Jets if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yes, true. Look, they're not going to do it for a variety of reasons because they've committed to Zach Wilson 2 years after they committed, or 3 years after they committed to Sam Darnold. With a top 5 draft pick in the quarterback position. But it's not a debate. It's not an opinion. It's not a take. It's a fact that Joe Flacco right now is a better quarterback for the New York Jets than Zach Wilson. He threw his first touchdown pass in 4 games in the loss to the Patriots. Joe Flacco has 5 touchdown passes in much less or much more limited time, rather playing quarterback. The Jets are in this quandary, which is where, we have 2 sort of conflicting agendas. We want to build the team. We want to build the program. We want to make sure that we have our guys in place for the future. But you got to win football games, and you have an opportunity potentially to sneak into the postseason this year. And Zach Wilson is holding you back. He's holding them back. I don't think that's a really hot take in any way, shape, or form. Joe Flacco gives the Jets the best chance to win every week. And the question is, are the Jets thinking about winning every week? Or are they thinking about securing the pick that they took with Zach Wilson a couple of years ago? What's the bigger priority?
Yeah.
Because it's not, like, statistically, it's not close. I'm not saying Zach Wilson can't get better, and I'm not saying down the road he won't be better. But right now, you have a team that's ready to win, and they lost Breece Hall, who was the linchpin of that offense.
Yep.
He was the reason they were winning games. Zach Wilson was just there. And then Zach Wilson on Sunday was one of the big reasons why they lost the game, the 13th straight game, by the way, to the New England Patriots. So, yeah, they have to figure some stuff out, because their best opportunities to succeed, and I'm not sure, quite frankly, if they have a better opportunity to succeed this week against Buffalo, but their best opportunity to succeed towards the postseason this season is Joe Flacco at quarterback. And when they drop him to number 3, and Joe was asked about that today, he said, "Yeah, I wasn't. No one told me that at all." That tells you that they are all in on trying to make sure Zach Wilson becomes what they hope he will be. Which is a really different sort of message than, hey, we got to win games.
It is, and it's fascinating to me that it's one thing to say we're going to move forward with Zach Wilson. It's an entirely different thing to actively move Joe Flacco down a spot on the depth chart, right? That goes to exactly what you're saying, which is we are going to let Zach know we're 100% behind him. This reminds me of the opposite. You remember when a couple of years ago when Tua was a rookie, Ryan Fitzpatrick had the Dolphins in contention through 4, 5, 6 games, and then they made the move to Tua, and the thought was they gave up on the season for Tua. It's like the reverse of that.
Yeah, and part of that was Ryan got COVID down the stretch and couldn't come bail out Tua when they needed one more win to potentially get into the postseason.
That's right.
Weirdly enough, against Buffalo, where Ryan spent a few years. But look, at the end of the day, as a head coach, your job is to win football games, right? That's the only thing that matters. It's not a try-hard league; it's a win league. But for the general manager and the front office and ownership, it's about building a long-term program. So right now, what you have are two sort of conflicting opinions, and the building the long-term success arm is weighing out, which might be at the expense of what potentially could happen for the Jets this season.
Yeah. Well, look, let's continue this idea of it not being a try-hard league, because one team that has tried hard when they had some adversity of losing Dak Prescott is the Dallas Cowboys. And they have kept themselves right in the thick of everything, despite the fact the Philadelphia Eagles have been undefeated. The Dallas Cowboys aren't far behind. Trey, true or false, the Cowboys are the Eagles' biggest threat to NFC supremacy.
Yeah, I think so. Look, Minnesota is weird, right? I mean, they just made the trade, and we'll get into that a little later, for TJ Hawkinson. All they do is win. They're never really like convincing in their wins. They were up big on the Bears a few weeks back and had to hang on. They had to hang on against Arizona. They've sort of had to hang. Even week 1, they got up big on the Packers, and the Packers sort of crept back into the game. They had to hang on for that game. Here's the deal with Dallas. Their defense is legitimate. They have playmakers at every level, whether it's the front 4, the linebacking core, or the secondary. Now you add in Dak Prescott, who finally looks like last year's Dak Prescott. He was rusty week 1, then got hurt. And in the win over the Lions, he did not play well for the first 2.5 quarters, and then sort of worked off the rust and played well enough to move them down the field. And then they scored 40-plus points against the Bears. Now, granted, one of those was a Micah Parsons return. I understand that, but that's still 42 points for a team that had scored no more than 23, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 27 in any other game this year. So when you have a healthy and unrusty Dak Prescott with Michael Gallup, who's now back, and CeeDee Lamb, and Dalton Schultz is there, and you have all these things going, the Cowboys present problems. What's really interesting about Dallas is that they rolled the Bears without Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard should be the featured back in Dallas anyway.
Thank you.
In games where he gets at least 15 touches, which is rushing attempts and receptions, they're 8-0 in Tony Pollard's career. And, oh, by the way, in those 8 games, they've averaged 37 points per game. That is not to say that Ezekiel Elliott can't contribute to the Dallas Cowboys. He does things well. He's a great blitz pickup guy. He runs tough yards, but Tony Pollard runs tough yards through the tackles too, and he's more explosive. Like, Jerry Jones said at the beginning of the year, the Cowboys offense will go through Ezekiel Elliott. Why? Why should the Cowboys offense go through Ezekiel? Because you're paying him that much money? Because you made a foolish decision on a contract? Because the numbers tell you that absolutely the offense should not go through Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott can be a part of a very productive offense in Dallas, but Tony Pollard is the guy. Tony Pollard is the dude. And the sooner the Cowboys realize that, then they'll really be a threat to Philadelphia and Minnesota and everybody else.
I couldn't agree more. Jerry said it again this week that it's still Zeke's, show, and it will go as Zeke goes. And it's really what you just said. It's sunken cost fallacy, right? They've invested all this money. They're going to ride it out and hope for the best. But Trey, the numbers, and you're so good at giving us these context clues, we'll call them. But these numbers are, 8-0, averaging 37 points. They scored 49 points last week. They were averaging, and I understand Dak wasn't there, but they're averaging 19 points a game up until they scored 49 points. Dak is great. He's not 30 points difference great, right?
No, Dak, well, listen, Dak is probably 10-point difference in that offense as opposed to Cooper Rush. But when you combine Dak with the explosiveness of Tony Pollard and the move, like, forget the long run, that first touchdown where he cut 3 times and just left people in their wake, that's what he can do. And Zeke can still, again, be an incredible contributor. But there's no reason to think we have to funnel everything through Zeke unless you're looking at it through financial goggles.
Yeah, very, very well said. Well, look, part of the financial goggles that goes on in the NFL is when and when not to move on from players, or when and when not to move on from coaches. And that brings me to this next point in our segment here, which is, who had been a media darling. We opened up the season, you and I, talking about, and you said it again, related to coaching. It's about wins. And at some point, the sound bites, the hard knocks, the toughness, doing the drills and the up downs with the team, at some point, that's got to lead to wins. So far, it hasn't. True or false, Trey? Dan Campbell could be done in Detroit.
Listen, I'm not a big fire coach guy, because I understand there are ramifications not only for him, but the rest of the coaching staff when that happens. But at the end of the day, they're just not getting it done. Like at the end of Hard Knocks, there was that great long pause where the producers asked, who are the Detroit Lions? And Dan took a long time to answer that question. And he went through the thought process. He didn't say anything for a long time, and they left it all complete, which was really good, compelling drama and TV. And he finally came up with the Detroit Lions are the team that can and will. Well, so far this season, the Detroit Lions are the team that can't and won't. And that's the bottom line. They have one win. They're basically on pace for another 3-13-1 season. And go look at the numbers for Jim Caldwell, okay, when he was the head coach of the Lions. Go look at the number. I think they were 36-28 under Jim Caldwell. I may be a little off there. The point is they were well over 500. In the Matt Patricia / Dan Campbell era, they're not close to being anywhere near 500. They fired Jim Caldwell for not winning 10, 11 games every year. And they can't win 5 a year since they got rid of Jim Caldwell. So, it's wins and losses. Nothing else matters. And Dan knows this as well as anyone, being a former player and an assistant coach who's bounced around. If you don't get the job done, you don't have the job anymore. Yeah. And right now, barring a miraculous turnaround, they're not going to get the job done. I call them the Detroit Lions because there is no D. There is no D.
I love that.
Lions, okay.
I love that.
Like I everyone's freaking out about the numbers that Tua put up last week against the Lions, and I'm like, it's the Lions. Like they're a come on in, whatever you need defense. That's who they are. They're DFL, dead last in terms of points allowed per game. So we can marvel at Tua and Jalen and Tyreek for all the other games. I'm not going to get carried away by the things they did against the Lions because everybody does this against the Lions.
Yeah, the Lions, they jumped out to a 14-0 lead in that game last week against Miami, gave it right up immediately. They were in that 50-point shootout or near 50-point shootout with the Seahawks early in the game.
48-40 something. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, your Jim Caldwell Lions record was spot on. 36-28 was his record for the Lions. Well done there, though no surprise. Look, you mentioned Tyreek Hill. Let's get into him for a second, because Tyreek Hill is on pace for a unheard of receiving season in the NFL.
Correct.
And a lot of the conversation about his offseason trade to the Miami Dolphins from the Kansas City Chiefs was, how do the Chiefs replace Tyreek Hill? And a separate conversation, could Tyreek Hill not be as good without Patrick Mahomes? So I'm going to ask the reverse of those questions here to you, Trey. True or false? Tyreek Hill is better without the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs are better without Tyreek Hill.
Well, let's take it. Let's take the first question. Tyreek Hill is better without the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Tyreek Hill is better because Jalen Waddle is the other receiver. Like, with all due respect to Mecole Hardman and Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, ain't none of those guys Jalen Waddle. Okay, so I'm not taking anything away from Tyreek, but yes, Tyreek Hill is better. How did you phrase this? Is better without Kansas City because he has Jalen Waddle on the other side.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's always interesting when you find out who a real number one wide receiver is when you take away one of the options. Right. There've been a million receivers that have looked really, really good when they were not being asked to be the guy that beats double teams. And they were the guy that benefited from the other wide receiver getting double teams. And suddenly when that wide receiver left and they were the one that had to beat double teams and they weren't getting single coverage anymore, those wide receivers were never as good. Well, when you have Jalen Waddle opposite you, who the hell are you going to double?
Right.
And then you have Gesicki underneath, right? So because of the other wide receiver in Miami, yes, I think Tyreek Hill is better out of Kansas City than he is now, based on the team construct. Now, the other thing is absolutely true. The Chiefs are better without Tyreek Hill for a variety of reasons. Number one, just the whole. I think they got a first, a second, a fourth, and a fifth, if I'm not mistaken. I might be off on. Yeah, they got way more than the Packers got for Devontae Adams. So the Chiefs took a bunch of draft picks for Tyreek Hill. And I'm just going to speak facts, right? The Chiefs have the number one scoring offense in the NFL without Tyreek Hill.
Fact.
Last season, the Chiefs averaged for the season, they were 24th in the NFL in terms of 30-yard number of 30-yard plays or more. Without Tyreek Hill this year, they're 6th. They are incredibly more explosive without Tyreek Hill than they were with Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs have 3 40-point games in the NFL. No one else has more than one. 2 of the Chiefs' 40-point games came against the Bucs, who at that time were the number one scoring defense in the NFL. And their last game before the bye was against the 49ers, who had some injuries, I understand, but they were the second best scoring defense in the NFL.
But Nick Bosa played in that game, Trey.
Nick Bosa did play in that game. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Andy Reid and his brilliance was on display courtesy of Nick Bosa in that game. It was, I think, at that point, a one-score game in the third. And, it had gotten tight, and it was a 3rd and 20. And they dialed up the most perfect screen I could ever see. Jerick McKinnon, the running back, was lined up outside, and it looked like, for all the world, his job was to block Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
His real job was to make Bosa think his job was to block Nick Bosa and let him slip by him. So, he does a little something, and Bosa goes right by him. And I'm sure in Bosa's mind, he's saying, I've won the rep. I'm coming to the quarterback. 3rd and 20, sack, maybe strip fumble. We're back in this game. Well,
Jerick's not a big guy, right?
No,
Jerick's not a big guy, not intimidating.
As soon as McKinnon was like, I whiffed, all he did was turn around, right? He didn't move. He didn't run downfield. He just turned around. Mahomes slung it sidearms right around Bosa, and they had 3 or 4 offensive linemen down the field. I think they picked up 46 yards on that play. So
Yeah.
the point I'm making here is that when you mentioned Bosa, it was the perfect example of why the Chiefs are as good as they are right now.
Yep.
In that game, they converted a 3rd and 20, which led to a touchdown. They converted a 3rd and 11 to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, which led to another touchdown. And the last touchdown they scored was like on a 40-yard pass play on a 3rd and 6. Like 3rd and long is the down where everyone else suffers and the Chiefs thrive, especially against the 49ers. So, we talked about this before the season began. Because of Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Mecole Hardman and even Watson, who had a touchdown in the game against Kansas City and has had some in spot duty. Sky Moore has been a disappointment, no question about it.
Based on the preseason hype that was coming in, right?
Yeah, they got to find a way to get him more involved.
Yeah.
But there are so many other ways the Chiefs can attack you now. It used to be clog the middle, don't let Travis Kelce beat us, and then let's too high safety over the top, make sure Tyreek doesn't blow the lid off the defense.
Yep.
Can't do that anymore. The proof is in the pudding. There've only been 9 40-point games in the NFL, and the Chiefs have 3 of them.
Yes, they do. And don't forget Isaiah Pacheco, the 7th-round rookie who's shown some really good stuff. Great pick. I mean, what we talked about at that time, Trey, was Brett Veach, the general manager there, understanding the value in roster construction and putting together a complete roster there. And you mentioned the screens. Our good friend Jeff Schwartz, who played for Andy briefly in Kansas City, his brother was an all-pro for Andy in Kansas City. He repeatedly will tell you Andy Reid is the best screen game designer in the NFL. It's not close. And for all the reasons you mentioned. And I think, to your point, not having to funnel the ball to Tyreek allows that to even come out in bigger spurts. Andy could be even more creative with the play calling with all the options that are there now. So, it's been fascinating. But like you said, on the other side of that, because Jalen Waddle's there, you can't go too high with both Waddle and Tyreek there. You're screwed. So Tyreek is the beneficiary, putting up record numbers this year. So we'll see how that goes. I've been doing a lot of betting, as you know, with Caesars. I am really good at picking Chiefs games. I am really good at picking Dolphins games. I have both of those teams on my slate. And I've been talking a lot about my new betting model that I've been using to make picks. Well, if anyone's interested, all you got to do is follow me on Pickett. Okay. Make sure you follow me on Pickett, because when you do, you'll be able to see how successful I am. You'll see how successful my model is, and you'll confirm that I place all my bets at Caesar Sportsbook for obvious reasons. Wink, wink, nod, nod to my good buddy, Trey Wingo. So a lot of this is all you got to do is download Pickett for free. It's not just a bet tracking app, Trey. It's a social media app. It's not just about looking at bet tracking. You can talk with an entire community of sports bettors and go through all the different things that are working for you, working for your model. All of our Pro Football Network content is there. You'll see me tweet about it. You'll see Trey tweet about it. Pickett is great. Download the app for free. It's 100% free. It's 100% free to use. And if you download it for free and use promo code PFN365, give yourself a chance to win $100 just for downloading the app. So go do that now. Promo code PFN365.
Can I tell you something real quick, by the way? You were talking about you're doing well with Chiefs games.
Yeah.
I have some numbers for you if you want them. Or do you want them now or do you want them later?
Do you have to ask if I want the numbers, Trey? Do you have to ask?
So the Chiefs are coming off their bye, right?
Yeah.
They got a Sunday night game against the Titans.
That's an Andy Reid special.
By the way, ridiculously, I think the Titans are a 12.5-point underdog. I don't quite understand that. But, I guess I do, because the Chiefs have actually lost and failed to cover in 5 straight regular season games against the Titans.
They got beat up last year.
27-3. That was when everyone said the Chiefs are broken. They'll never be any good again. And I was like, I think you might be a little premature.
Yeah.
So they're coming off their bye. Andy Reid in his coaching career, Philadelphia and Kansas City, is 20-3 coming off a bye week. That is by far the best record in the NFL dating back to 1990 for a head coach.
Yeah.
But we did some additional work, and we took it one step further.
Oh, yeah.
In his career, Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback after a bye is 4-0. This will be his 5th bye game. But that's easy, right? Now coming off the bye.
Yeah.
We went and looked at the numbers. What happens for the Chiefs after their bye week for the rest of the season? Okay.
Ooh.
We've talked about them having struggles in October. I think they
Yes.
were 13-8 now, or 13-7 in the month of October in Mahomes' career as a starter. Great in September. After the Chiefs' bye week, since Patrick Mahomes took the starter, and I don't mean just the game after the bye week, I mean every game the rest of the season after the bye. With Patrick Mahomes as a starter, the Chiefs after the bye since 2018 are 19-3. Take it one step further. In the last 3 seasons, 2019, 2020, and 2021.
Right.
You know what their record is after the bye?
I don't.
16-1.
Come on.
16-1. The only loss after the bye the last 3 seasons was the game in Cincinnati last year when they were up 14 points multiple times and couldn't find a way to close it out, which came back to haunt them again in the AFC Championship.
In the postseason, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the only loss for the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback after their bye week in the last 3 seasons. So the Chiefs are this team, and I talked about this with my friend Mark Schlereth on another show that we do, where I said, can you give me a reason for that? And he said, yeah, I think the Chiefs get bored. I think they come out of the gate strong. They know how good they are. Yeah. They come out in September shooting crazy, and then they're like, we got 3 more months. And then they take a little lull in the month of October. They take a little lull, and then they realize we got to get our bleep together. And they, from November through the last week or the first week in January, are straight fire in the regular season. So I would be shocked if the Chiefs lost more than 2 games the rest of the way.
Well, history says that that's a pretty safe bet. Yeah, it's wild, man. These numbers are insane. There are people who out there say, everyone talks, it's too much about the Chiefs, too much about Patrick Mahomes. And you hear these numbers, and it's like we're not talking enough about the historical things that these guys are doing, things we've really never seen before. And it's exciting to watch. It's fun. And by the way, if there was a weak spot on the Kansas City Chiefs, say it's probably the right tackle, and I think someone got activated today to start practicing.
Lucas Niang?
I know that guy. Full disclosure for journalistic principles, and I'm not a journalist, but I do work and train
for principles.
So just very excited to see my guy back out there recovering. So let's hey Trey, we had a historic NFL trade deadline yesterday.
Yeah.
We're just a little over 24 hours removed from a ton of wheeling and dealing, and our graphics team put together some incredible graphics to highlight the actual movement here. Brian, let's take a look. Who's our first trade guy to talk about? Oh, there it is, TJ.
Wow, Mufasa! Look at him, my God.
Yeah. Did you say Mufasa?
I did. Flowing mane, hair.
That's awesome.
Everywhere it is.
Hey, yeah, there it is. So he's that's awesome. So he's an interdivision trade. Again, this goes to what are the Lions doing here? This is a piece you might think about building around. You're not supposed to be in a teardown phase going into year 2, year 3. You should be building up here.
Wow.
Goes to Minnesota. What are your thoughts on the impact he's going to make there?
Well, first and foremost, that might be an indication of other major changes coming in Detroit, right? Like it might be a tip of the cards there. It's an immediate impact for Minnesota because Irv Smith, their tight end, is going to be out 8 to 10 weeks with a high ankle sprain. So I give the Lions credit for getting a decent haul in return, but you just helped a division rival. Like, in-division trades are very rare. They happen every once in a while, but they're very, very strange, and they're very, very unusual and very unique. I think TJ is going to be, look, are you kidding me? Thielen on one side, Jefferson on the other, Dalvin Cook in the backfield, and now you add TJ Hawkinson underneath. The Vikings, who just win, like they don't do anything like incredibly flashy or brilliant. They let teams hang around. They just win. Have another opportunity and another weapon to add to the stable for Kirk Cousins. And it's weird with Minnesota because we can talk about how well they're playing and all the wins, but everyone's going to be like, yeah, until the playoffs, like show me because of the history with Kirk Cousins. So and it's all gravy, but they know that none of this matters until they get into the playoffs. But having TJ Hawkinson there now helps them get into the playoffs in a much more secure place.
I like when a team, Trey, acts their record. You always tell the kids act your age. Tell a grown man act your age. I like when they act their record. They're 6-1, and they're moving right now. Now they're not special. They're not flashy. They're not doing anything. Oh, the Vikings. We're not talking about them the way we talk about Philly or Dallas, but they see their record. They're losing a piece in Irv Smith, and they don't take that for granted. They go out and make a move to try to keep the momentum going that they have. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I don't think enough teams really do that. The Rams are a team that, right, F them picks. We're going to go for it. And I like that Minnesota went ahead and did that. Brian, let's throw the next one up there. Let's take a look at, by the way, actually, Brian, before you do that, if you haven't already, we did get a question. Usually I would save this for the fan segment, but I want this guy to get his question answered early because he's here early. About Dan Campbell. All right. Do we think he deserves another year because it hasn't been year 3? Is this a premature decision if they move on from him, given he hasn't, quote, gotten a quarterback yet? This is from Twitter user Tyler Ruff. So, Tyler, here's your answer.
Tyler, thank you for your question. I want Dan Campbell to succeed. I do. I had concerns about the hire. You got to win. You got to win. Again, go back and look at Jim Caldwell's record, and that wasn't good enough. And then you bring in Matt Patricia, and you let him. Was he there for 3 years or half of a third season, whatever it was? Brutal. And I'm sorry, they've won 1 game, and they won 3 last year. You got to win. So unless they don't win 5 or 6 games the remainder of the season, I don't see how you can keep them around. You gotta pull the plug, and Jared Goff may not be there anyway next year, regardless of who the head coach is.
Right, and that's the thing. You go into year 3, you get rid of Jared Goff, assuming or presumably you have a rookie quarterback that you're taking this year with your record. You're going to, maybe you're taking those picks for Hawkinson and you're going to try to move up or if you even have to, and grab a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young, whatever the case is. Now what? Now does the clock reset for Campbell? You're going to give him another 3 years because now he's got the rookie quarterback excuse. He's 4-19-1 right now. That's his record. And as the great Bill Parcells has said in the past, you are what your record says you are. All right, let's throw up the next trade. I think I know what this one is. Let's see. We got it's this one. This team was active. This is another team acting your record, Trey. Miami Dolphins seeing an opportunity here, going and getting an elite pass rusher. Is it enough, though? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I love them shooting, right?
Yeah.
Go for it.
It's your shot.
Go for it. But it is funny. Before the trade, the odds on Caesar Sportsbook for the Dolphins to win it all were plus 3,000. After the trade for Bradley Chubb, the Dolphins' odds to win it all at Caesar Sportsbook are plus 3,000.
Big move.
which is just a fancy way of saying nobody believes they're going to get past the Bills and the Chiefs in the postseason. Right? That's sort of what it says. I don't mind the move. I like it. Go for it. Make it happen. Speak it into existence. But Bradley Chubb is not Von Miller. I mean, he's a good player, really good player. He's not Von Miller. He had 12.5 sacks his rookie year, and he's never had double-digit sacks since then. He's been injured in and out. I think he had 5.5 before the trade, so he's had a productive year. There's no question about it. But don't expect Von Miller-type results from Bradley Chubb going to Miami. Now, it's going to be interesting when you have Jalen Phillips on one side and Chubb on the other. I mean, they brought in Chubb to pair with Von in Denver to sort of recreate the DeMarcus Ware Von Miller pairing that they had when they won Super Bowl 50, which was great. Bradley Chubb is a really, really good player, but I do not think that he's going to elevate the way Von Miller elevated the Rams last year in the trade deadline, or the way that Von Miller is elevating the Bills right now. I think he's a good piece to add to the equation. That to me, that's sort of the best way to look at it.
I'm interested. Well, first of all, it's like you said, and like I said before, I love that they shot their shot, right? You're going for it. But and the books know this, you know this, right? The most valuable quarterbacks moving points or moving games typically, or most valuable players tend to be quarterbacks. Excuse me. Bradley Chubb is great.
Yeah.
If he was that great, probably wouldn't be available. And I don't mean he's not. And I don't mean to say like
Well, I think Denver is they're a mess.
they're a
I mean,
mess, and they're looking to get some cap back and do a number of things for sure. But I think a lot of this is what I'm interested in looking at in particular is, can he stay healthy? This is a player who gets hurt quite a bit. And so Miami has a decision to make, presumably Trey, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think they got to commit, they have to figure out if they're going to sign him to an extension because he's due for an extension, right? Otherwise, this is what, a half year rental or so.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I want to be mindful of and see, but we'll see what happens there. The Dolphins did make another trade, Trey. This one was a bit more obvious once Christian McCaffrey made his way to the San Francisco 49ers. Brian, you want to throw it up there? We got moving from the Bay Area to South Beach, Mr. Jeff Wilson. Not as monumental as Christian McCaffrey going to San Francisco.
It's a good pickup.
Wilson, it's a good pickup. He was on his way to being the 5th leading rusher for Kyle Shanahan in as many years at San Francisco. How do you like his fit in Miami in the backfield with Raheem Mostert?
Well, I mean, just think about what you just said, right? He was going to be the 5th leading rusher in 5 years for Kyle Shanahan. Where did Mike McDaniels last work? In San Francisco.
That's right.
With who? Yep. Raheem Mostert, right?
Yep.
They both came over from San Francisco. So the thing that makes this trade more intriguing for me is the idea that you have another running back who Mike McDaniels is very familiar with and knows the offense in terms of the running game that they want to run. I think this is actually one of those quality sort of not headline pickups that people didn't attract a lot of attention, but when it's all said and done, might be really beneficial, more so than people are thinking right now because of those factors we just talked about.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Also in the Bradley Chubb deal, Chase Edmonds, who was Miami's backup to Mostert, went over to Denver, and so Jeff Wilson now is gonna split the carry. So we'll see the impact there. I am very interested. I love when Mike McDaniels was with Kyle Shanahan, he wasn't just the offensive coordinator; he was the run game coordinator. That was his specialty area. So if anyone can get the most out of those two guys who he has experience with, it's going to be Mike McDaniel. Brian, let's take a look at the next show. Let's throw it up there. This was an interesting one to me, Trey, because this is a guy who I think has all the talent in the world. And Martina Davies, by the way, watching on YouTube, we are going to I see your comments, see your questions. Our last segment of the show is when we get all these on. So make sure you stick around we're going to answer both of those things. Don't you worry about it. But Chase Claypool going to the Bears, Trey, all the talent in the world. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he was the one that didn't give the ball to the ref.
Minnesota game.
He has some of these
first
boneheaded
down
moments. Yeah, he's got some of these boneheaded moments. Can he be the help that Justin Fields so desperately needs?
I think he can, and I want to read some numbers to you real quick here. If I have them here. Yeah. So it makes sense for Claypool because Darnell Mooney leads Chicago in receiving yards and catches with 25.
Wow.
And 364 receiving yards. No other Bears wideout has more than 64 receiving yards or 11 catches. And those numbers both belong to Equanimous St. Brown. So there is literally no one else for Justin Fields to throw to than Darnell Mooney. So having him there, I think absolutely helps. And I got to say, I'm very encouraged about what I've seen out of Justin Fields the last 2 weeks. It finally seems like the Bears have designed an offense around his skill set and things that he can do well. And he played pretty well in that game against against the Cowboys, even though he didn't touch Micah Parsons and jumped over him. Probably wouldn't have been good. Toe tap him or do whatever. It can't hurt, right? And the one thing that they can make Chase do really quickly is just run down the field, go routes, 9 routes, and that's something that Justin Fields has plenty of arm to hit him with. They needed to do something because the cupboard was bare outside of Darnell Mooney, to not be a pun on the Chicago Bears, but there just wasn't a lot there.
Yep.
So with that in mind, I do like the trade. Although I'm glad they didn't trade for Ian Book, because then you would have had Ian Book, Cole Kmet, and Chase Claypool, and suddenly the Bears are recreating Notre Dame from a couple of years ago.
I don't know if that's what you want to be doing.
Not exactly. That's not what you want in any way, shape, or form. Oof. So
sorry to the Golick family. I know you guys.
Yeah. So anyway, I do like the move. Like, it can't. I don't think it can hurt, and it can only help.
Yeah, and that's desperately what Justin Fields needs, is help. I mean, those numbers you gave out about the leading receiver for the Bears, I mean, that's mind-blowingly bad. And you can have the argument, is it because Justin Fields is struggling to get the ball out? Is it because the offense doesn't have the playmakers? Is it, it could be a number of things, but like you said, the only way to find out, start getting talent around them. We talked about the difference that Stephon Diggs made for Josh Allen, in addition to everything else that Josh Allen's done to improve. You got to get these young quarterbacks, these young athletes, some help, some confidence in who they're throwing the ball to. So we'll see what happens there. We have 2 more to get through here. This one, not probably talked about as much as it should be, because I don't think he was ever utilized as well as he could have been in Indianapolis, and that's Nyheim Hines. A really, really unique player. I don't want to call him a gadget player, because I feel like that's diminishing him, because he can run between the tackles a little bit. He's awesome out in space. Trey, is this what the Bills needed to really help get them to that precipice that they're searching for?
No, but it doesn't hurt.
Oh.
To me, you know the best move the Bills made? The best move the Bills made was activating Tre'Davious White.
Yep.
I mean, people are like, what was the most impactful thing on trade day? And I'm like, Tre'Davious White being activated. Like, that's significant. Like, Tre'Davious White is a baller, the cornerback for the Bills, if those are not familiar with him. Played at LSU and has been out for a while dealing. I think he was a torn ACL. Is that what it was? I think it was a torn ACL. Yeah. So he's been out for a while. Getting him back speaks volumes. Now, Nyheim Hines is a fun toy to have for Josh Allen, and Zach Moss is now gone. So they don't have a great running game. I mean, Josh Allen is still the best part of the Bills' running game. I mean, that's just the way it is. But it allows them another opportunity to find a playmaker and put the ball in his hands, whether it's through running, like you said, he can do between the tackles, or put him out in space. So, it doesn't hurt in any way, shape, or form. But to me, by far, the biggest move the Bills made on that day was making sure that Tre'Davious White is healthy and ready to roll.
Yeah, I think I agree there. I know they're looking for some type of assistance for Singletary in the backfield and trying to get that backfield going. But you give Josh Allen any type of help or weaponry, I mean, explosive things can happen. But you're right. The thing that the Bills did really, really well last year, and are doing a great job of this year, we talked about that on this show, is with all the talk around Josh Allen, we're not talking enough about how good that defense is, and it got better yesterday.
Yeah, significantly better.
Yeah, so really, really good stuff there. And the final trade to me was the most interesting from the sense of who it involved, and that was the suspended Calvin Ridley, who got Pete Rosed this offseason, going over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is obviously not a move for this week or the near future, because he's suspended for gambling. But he is a talented receiver, Trey.
He is.
What are your thoughts about this move for the Jaguars, long term?
My first thought is Calvin Ridley was suspended for betting on his team to beat the Jags, and now he's a Jaguar. That's the first. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? Yeah. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Well, shame on you, whatever. And now he's a Jaguar. So honestly, I think that it helps, because it's going to help Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence needs help right now.
He does.
Trevor Lawrence needs help. I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars made a mistake by drafting Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear about why I say that, because everyone, if they'd needed a quarterback and had the number 1 pick, would have taken Trevor Lawrence. Okay. It was not a debate. It was not Is it this guy or is it another guy? By all the metrics everyone uses to draft a quarterback, Trevor Lawrence was far and away the best prospect in the 2021 draft. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work, but it means that everyone, if they had been in Jacksonville's shoes, would have absolutely taken Trevor Lawrence. Yep. And it is taking some time. Some of that was last year with the Urban Meyer fiasco and everything that Wells on. But, the last couple of games, we've seen Trevor Lawrence make a game-clinching interception for the other team late in the game, and Trevor Lawrence needs help. And I think that Calvin Ridley down the road can be someone that can help Trevor Lawrence hopefully become the player that the Jaguars predicted him to be when they made him the number 1 overall pick in the draft a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, I know I agree with you, and I think it's too early to use that B word with Trevor Lawrence.
And again, there's two things here, right? Like there's busts and there's picks that just don't work out.
Right, and that's where
two different things.
Yeah, we've talked about the value of environment in player development, and this is a situation where he started out in as bad an environment as a young player could with the debacle that is Urban Meyer. I won't say was because I don't know that he has ceased being a debacle. Sorry for that. Whatever. And so with Trevor Lawrence, any help you can get him. Christian Kirk has been pretty good. He's been decent, I suppose. But Calvin Ridley is another great player you're adding, and you're not going to feel good about evaluating your quarterback. And this goes to Martina's comment about Tua, which we'll get to in a few minutes in the comments there. You're not going to feel good about evaluating your quarterback unless you know that they have enough talent around them to get that fair evaluation. I think this move does that.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to our final segment here. But before we do, all of these trades, and Trey mentioned this with Bradley Chubb, prior to that trade, the Dolphins' chances of odds to win a Super Bowl at Caesars Sportsbook were plus 3,000. After the trade, they moved to plus 3,000. And
which is a nice way of saying they didn't move.
And all of these teams, exactly. All of these teams either moved or didn't move according to these trades. All of the teams who made these trades, Trey, are hoping it improves their chances to go to the Super Bowl. If there's a team that you were going to place a bet on to win the Super Bowl who made a trade yesterday, go to Caesars Sportsbook and think about putting that bet down if you think this trade is going to enhance those chances. If you think Bradley Chubb makes the Dolphins a better Super Bowl contender, maybe that plus 3,000 not moving is a good value for you. Go place that bet at Caesars Sportsbook, and if it's your first wager, man, we got a good promo for you. Because if you lose that bet, you're going to get 100% of your stake back as a free bet. And that's good for up to $1,250. And like I said, win or lose, you're also going to get 1,000 reward credits and 1,000 tier credits, which only Caesars Sportsbook is doing. And I have a ton of them. So redeem the offer that we're giving you guys. It's in the comments. I'm giving it to you here. The link is in the comments. Click on it. Go place your first wager using promo code PFNCZR. PFNCZR. And that's at Caesars Sportsbook and PFN. Trey's a little upset because the old promo code we had was a little bit funnier, but we've changed it. So I wasn't saying FU.
It's all good.
So let's move on to our final segment here. This is what we do every week. This is our Super Smash quarterback matchup of the week. And this one's a little bit of a caveat because it's would be really cool if it happens, and we'll see what happens with, well, I won't give it away.
Just put up the graphic.
If Malik Willis starts for the Titans this week, I see this as a really, really good battle of the dynamos because I think that's what Malik Willis can be, and it's without question what Patrick Mahomes is. What are your thoughts on that potential matchup, Trey?
Well, I mean, if Malik Willis starts, then I think the idea of the Chiefs being a 12.5-point favorite makes all the sense in the world. look, the Chiefs' defense is much better than it's been the last couple of years. I think they're third best against the run right now. And they're going to be tested against Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry and the Chiefs, the Titans have, after an 0-2 start, they've ripped off 5 straight wins. Derrick Henry has 100 yards rushing in the last 4 games of that 5-game winning streak. And Malik Willis certainly would add to that run total if he's there. But I just don't see if Malik Willis is indeed the starter, I don't see Tennessee walking into Arrowhead and coming out with a win. These are teams that are very successful in completely different directions, in completely different ways. The Chiefs will slice you and dice you up and down the field, no matter how good your defense is, and put up 32 points. And the Titans will slug it out with you and slow down the game and try and limit your possessions and try and wear you down in the second half with Derrick Henry. So if it happens, we're going to be looking at 2 very, very different squads going forward.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, the reason we're saying if it happens is because Ryan Tannehill didn't play last week. His ankle is still bothering. He's limited in practice today, and there's a real possibility he doesn't play.
Right.
Trey, with Malik Willis as the quarterback last week, the Titans scored their second lowest point total of the season. And for a start, can chalk that up to a number of things. But I think, as usual, you're spot on here. I think Malik Willis is going to give you enough things to go, wow, this could be a lot of fun down the road. And that's what I think is intriguing about the matchup. But we'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, but the other part of this is if Malik Willis is out there or if Tannehill, who the hell are they throwing to, right? A.J. Brown by himself has more receiving yards than the entire receiving core for the Tennessee Titans. A.J. Brown, former Titan, has more receiving yards by himself than every other wide receiver that has participated in a football game this year for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, well, as Martina Davies just said, a lamb to slaughter comes to mind for Malik Willis.
Yeah.
So, wow. Yeah, okay. Well, if you're really feeling that matchup, Patrick Mahomes over on Underdog, you can get him higher or lower at 288.5 passing yards.
He's averaging over 300 a game.
So I think we might be smashing the higher on that one. And look, Underdog is a great way to spice up your fantasy football season. And like I said, you can take the higher on lower on a number of players, offensive players, that is. We just gave you Patrick Mahomes stat projection. And when you do that, you can get up to a $100 deposit bonus when you use promo code PFN at sign up. We're giving you guys a ton of promo codes today. Make sure you're clicking them in the comments. We got tons of things to give away for you guys because we know you're spending the money anyway. So go spend it with us and get some money back. Okay, Trey, great show. Fan segment real quick. Let's just take
let's get a couple of questions. Yeah.
Martina Davies, Chubb can only help Jalen Phillips, that is, their first round pick from a year ago, and as a pair could make a real difference. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Who put the question mark in the prompter? No, listen, it could absolutely. I'm just trying to tamper down expectations. Like you're not getting Von Miller, right? He's not that player. You're getting a really good player, but he's not Von Miller good. That's the only thing I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that.
Enormous.
Yeah. Martina also adds, clearly, I think a Dolphins fan here, which is always welcome. Bookies will be just as shocked as all the media when Tua shows his game is elite and is just getting started. Your boy Dan Orlovsky has come around on Tua, I've noticed, by the way.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts there? You think bookies will be amazed?
I think Tua's already showing that, right? Like just look at the numbers when he plays as opposed to somebody else plays quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And again, a little inflated because of the previous game against the Detroit Lions. But yeah, I think here's the other thing that's gonna be really interesting going forward, like just especially this week. Have you seen the splits on the Dolphins defense, home versus away?
No, tell me.
Let me just and again, they're playing the Bears, so this could really be put to the test. Let me find this for you here real quick.
While you're looking, I'll note that Chase Claypool did practice for the Bears and will probably get some run on a short.
Oh, he's definitely going to get some run. Hold on. Bears, blah, blah, blah. Where is this number? Here it is. Gosh darn it. Bad words. Here it is. The Dolphins defense in 4 games on the road this year. Okay.
Yeah.
Not in Hard Rock where they have the heat going for them. They give up 33 points per game allowed. Keep in mind, the Chiefs are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL at 31.9 points per game. So when the Dolphins defense is on the road, they make every team the Chiefs. And they give up 389 yards, almost 390 yards per game. They have no turnovers forced and only 4 sacks in 4 road games this year. So the Dolphins defense is great at home and is very, very pedestrian so far on the road this year. Now, granted, they're playing the Bears.
So what happens?
Have a get-right game against an offense that is limited. I understand that. But you were seeing a different dynamic when you look at this team.
Yeah, look,
defensively.
When you're a defense, no matter where you're playing, if you're making the opposition look like the Chiefs, it's probably not going well for you. We'll take one final question here. It's from Brian Mahaffey. He would like to know your thoughts on the Roquan Smith trade. Speaking of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, look, it's a great trade for the Ravens. Roquan will make them better. You put him inside with Patrick Queen, excuse me. And
Lightning McQueen was a great race car.
Absolutely. And Steve McQueen was a great actor, but that's neither here nor there. He's a great tackler. Like, the problem for Roquan Smith is he is really, really good at a position very few teams value.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an off-ball inside linebacker. They're looking to trade for Bradley Chubbs and Von Millers and all those kind of guys.
Great point.
Way more than an inside linebacker who might lead the league in tackling. Might absolutely lead the league in tackling again. Maybe this is for another show, but a really interesting topic is, okay, the Ravens are kind of all in. They go get Roquan Smith. What happens if it doesn't go well this year? What happens? Lamar Jackson's not under contract. Roquan Smith can leave, and they probably won't re-sign him. Like, what happens with Baltimore after this season? I find fascinating.
Yeah, we pinpointed them middle of last year when we sat down with Andrew Brandt. I'm sorry, Randy Mueller's who we sat down with.
Yeah.
And we talked about this situation, and he said exactly what you said. It's not about this year currently.
No.
What happens next year? And
the Ravens to me are a fascinating topic. We can do a whole show on that.
And depending on how the season goes, we may just well. Trey, I legitimately missed my time with you last week while I was away, and I'm glad we got to do it again this week.
How was Disney? Was it good? Good with the kids? Good with the fam?
It was magical. It was magical. And I don't say that hyperbolically. I mean, that was a fantastic, fantastic experience. But I did miss the opportunity to talk some ball with you, which is always.
That's how you went full Tom Brady. Just took a little vacation off during the season.
Trying to play while being retired, some might say. Okay, guys, I am Brett Yarris. This is Pro Football Network's Football Insiders, and it's called Football Insiders because the guy on the screen with me is Trey Wingo, and we bring it to you each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that means we'll see you at that same time next week. Have a great Thursday night football tomorrow and week 9 slate of NFL games.